Hello everyone, this is Andrew with Novus Computers and novuscomputers.com, and today we have another entry in our Computing 101 video series, and we are on Windows 10 Basics, and we're going to be looking today at personalization. So we're going to teach you how to make Windows yours and actually make it a little bit more friendly and make it the way you like it to be. So without further ado, we're going to jump in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is we need to open up our personalization options. And the easiest way to do that is to simply right-click with your mouse anywhere on the screen that's open. So I can pretty much do it anywhere here on my screen, as long as it's not over the top of an icon, because otherwise you'll get a different menu. So right-click anywhere that's open, and we're going to go down here to the bottom of the menu to where it says Personalize. So right here we have our personalization options, and pretty much almost everything we need to personalize Windows is located right here. Not everything. There's one thing that is missing, and I will touch on that towards the end of the video. But right now, we have several tabs over here, background, colors, lock screen, so on and so forth. And we're just going to kind of go over each of these and kind of give you an idea about what options, lie within each of them. So the first thing I want to point out here, however, is the preview window here, which if I click on several of these tabs, you'll notice that that preview window stays there. So that kind of gives you a nice little window to be able to see, exactly what or how your changes are affecting, everything that you're doing. So first off, we have our background tab here. So what we're going to look at here first is our different background options, which is in this little drop down here. Now we have three different options at the moment. One is picture, one is solid color, and one is slideshow. So what picture is it just gives us a solid static picture, a single picture. So if you have a particular photo that you want to use or a picture you've downloaded off the internet, whatever it is, you can set it to picture. And then you can browse using this button here to that photo and select it. Alternately, you can also pick from one of the Windows default backgrounds here. So all you have to do here is just left click on it. So for instance, I can left click on this one here. And you can see that it's changed my background now to a nice little camp scene that's got a little tent, some stars. You can see the sun looks like it's just starting to set. So everything's real nice. You can also click on any of the other ones. So if I click on this one, for instance, you can see that we have the side of a mountain, it looks like here. A couple guys climbing up there. I don't want to be in their shoes right now. But we can also click this Browse button, and we can navigate wherever we want to in our computer. So we can navigate to our Pictures folder, for instance. And I can pick, say, this starry wallpaper here that I have downloaded. So I'm just going to left click on it once and then come down here to where it says Choose Picture and left click on that. And voila, we have ourselves, looks like a nice little mountain range here. Lots of stars. Looks real nice. So we can also browse and choose, other pictures. And as you can see, this also filled in my starry picture here. In this list. So if you have a couple backgrounds you might want to switch between or cycle through, you can do it this way. One thing I will touch on right here is I get this question a lot, is why does my wallpaper look so terrible? And the number one reason why your wallpaper looks so terrible is because it's likely too small for your display. Almost 100%, I'd say 99% of images that you either take with a camera or you download off the internet nowadays are what are known as raster images, which means they have a fixed size or fixed dimension. And you can't really blow those images up too much without making them look blurry and blotchy, pixelated, stuff like that. So I'm going to give you an example here. If I go ahead and click Browse, and I'm going to pick this image right here of our little Linus from Charlie Brown. And I'm going to go ahead and choose him as a picture. And as you can see, it made it a picture, but you can see it looks pretty bad. There's a lot of noise and pixelization up here and blurry lines. a lot of it just looks really, really bad. Honestly, this actually looks a little bit better than I was expecting, but it's still definitely not something that you would want to say, yeah, I use this as a wallpaper. And I'm going to show you why. If I click Browse again here and hover my mouse over this image, you can see right where it says dimensions. And right now it's saying 414 by 314. And that dimension is in pixels. Your computer's display is also measured, its resolution is measured in pixels. So as you can see, this one is 414 by 314. My display is 1920 by 1080, so 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels. So as you can see, this is almost a quarter the size of my actual display. So that's why it looks so terrible, because what's going on is Windows is taking this image and it's blowing it up over this entire screen, and as a result, you end up with a lot of this nasty noise, pixelization, stuff like that. So the number one rule when looking for a wallpaper, or if you're planning on setting a picture as a wallpaper, is make sure that it is the same resolution as your display. And you can consult your computer's documentation to find, or your monitor's documentation if you're on a desktop. If you're on a laptop, you can consult the laptop's documentation, or again, if you're on a desktop, consult your monitor's documentation. Or if it's an all-in-one, you'll have, again, same deal as a laptop, consult your computer's documentation. You can find your screen resolution. Most resolutions nowadays are 1920 by 1080. A couple other common ones would be like 1680 by 1050. There's a couple other ones out there as well. But just make sure that your image is the same size as your screen, if not a little bit larger. You can always shrink an image down and you won't lose much definition as you would if you were going to try and expand or blow an image up. So down here we have our fitment options. There's a fairly decent sized list of different options here, so I'm just going to go over each one briefly. By default, everything is set to fill, which what this does is it takes the image from the top corner here and runs the image along the top of the screen here until it hits the edge of the right edge of the screen here. And then it chops off whatever's on the bottom. So this image is a little bit more square than my monitor. My monitor's kind of rectangular here, and the image itself is actually a little bit more square. So what it does is it gives me the full width of the image, and it gives me the full top of the image, but then it chops off whatever's on the bottom that's overhanging past the edge of the monitor. So you're not getting 100% of the image, but this option is generally going to be your best bet, just due to the fact that it's usually the most compatible. So the next option we have is fit. So if I want to make sure that I'm seeing the entire image here, I can choose fit. The issue I'm going to have, however, if I choose fit, is you can see I have these nasty looking green bars on the end here. And this is because, again, this image is more square than my monitor is. So now I've got the whole image, in my display, but since it's, being used at a, perfect resolution, or, it's exactly square, I don't have a full width here. So I have these green bars on the edges here. So these green bars can actually, you can change which color they are. I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit. But it gives me a little bit of overhang. It doesn't give me a perfect image all the way across my monitor. So one way you can do that is to choose fill. Another option you can use is stretch. And what this will do, if I choose stretch, you'll see that it actually causes the image to stretch. So I'm still getting the full top and bottom, but it will cause the image to stretch to the sides of the screen. This isn't usually too bad if you're using like a landscape image, or an image with a lot of fine detail, or an image that doesn't have a lot of set geometry that will be easily distorted. However, if you have an image with, say, people in it, or a round object, or some set geometry, or if you have a very narrow image, then stretch is not a good option. And the reason why is because if I have these green bars here, if I change this back to fit real briefly, you can see I have these green bars. Well, if these green bars were much wider, so for instance, if they came out to right about here on each side, and my image was very, very thin, so it was basically straight up and down almost, and I chose stretch, you'd see that all of these stars wouldn't really look like little tiny dots. They wouldn't look like stars at all. They'd actually be way stretched out. They'd almost look more like a meteor shower. And down here would look way stretched out. It would not look very good at all. It would almost look very similar to choosing a small image and then choosing fill. It basically is the same concept. You're trying to take an image and blow it up, except this time you're only blowing it up in one direction. So next up, we've got our tile option, which on this particular image, if I choose tile, you can see that it seems like it blew the image way out of proportion here. And that's because it's actually displaying the image in its native resolution. So you can see just how big this image is compared to my screen. This image actually falls way off the edges of the screen. There's actually way more image over here on the right and towards the bottom. But what I'm going to do is to show you how tile works, I'm actually going to choose our small little Linus image here again. And as you can see, it uses that image's default resolution and it tiles it across the screen. So every time it reaches the edge, it just adds on and keeps going. Tile is not used very often for this specific reason that a lot of people don't want to see the same image over and over and over again. However, if you are using some sort of pattern or something as your background and you want it to be able to tile it, or say it, it's like a texture or something that tiles seamlessly, you can use the tile option and it will tile all the way across your desktop. So next we have center, which again I'm going to leave this little Linus image here for an example, and we're going to choose center. Which what center does is, as you can see, it leaves the image again in its native resolution or its actual true size, and it just puts it in the center of the screen. If I choose a larger image, like our starry background, again, this leaves it in its default size or its native size, its actual real true to life size, and it just centers it in the middle of your screen. So I have images, image that's fallen off the left edge, the right edge, the top, and the bottom. If I switch between center and fill, you can see the effect. As you can see, it almost looks like we zoomed out. And if I choose back to center, it looks like we've zoomed in. So we're not actually seeing the entire image. It looks like we've zoomed in with our camera. So finally, we have span. Now, span is kind of a hybrid between fill and center. What it does is it does the same thing as fill. However, it takes the image and it centers it vertically. So if I choose and flip between span and fill here, you can kind of see how the image moves up and down a little bit. And that's because fill uses the top corner of the image and then runs across the top of the screen, whereas span centers the image. So in reality, there's not a big difference between them usually, unless you have a image that is much, much taller than the screen, and in which case you might want to use span to be able to see the center of the image instead of just the top, maybe the top half. So that's a quick look at the different fitment options. So next up, we're going to look at the remaining background options, next of which is solid color. So if I go ahead and click solid color here, which I just did, you'll see that we get this wonderful green color here. We can also choose different colors. If I choose, red, I get a red background. If I choose gold, I get kind of a goldish background. If I choose black, I get a black background. One handy trick is, as you might remember, we had those solid green bars on the edge of that image when we chose to fit. If I choose black here under solid color and then go back to picture as an option, and we have our image back here, you can see. And if I choose fit this time, you'll see that the bars are no longer green, they're black. So you can use the solid color option here to basically choose what color those bars are going to be. A lot of people like to leave them as black since that typically is, the least intrusive and least obnoxious. So that does it for solid color. That's basically all there is. You can pick, different color blocks, and that will change the background color. Slideshow is very similar to picture, except what you can actually do is you can browse for a particular folder. So for instance, I can choose my pictures up here, and then I just click this choose this folder button since I've clicked over here. And what that will do is that will cause it to cycle through all of my pictures in that folder. So if I shrink this window down here, and I right-click on my desktop, and I click this next desktop background option, which this has appeared because I've set this to slideshow. Normally that option doesn't appear. But if I right-click and click this next desktop background option, you'll see that it changes the wallpaper. And if I do it again, it'll change it again. And next. And it changes it back to our starry landscape. So what that'll do is it'll allow you to cycle through different photos that you have in your pictures folder or any particular folder you prefer to choose. Down below here, we can choose how often the picture changes on its own. We have anything from 1 day to 1 minute. So the default is 30 minutes. So if you prefer to have, a new fresh wallpaper every day, then you can set it at 1 day. If you prefer to have a hyperactive wallpaper that changes every minute, then you can set it to a minute. Enjoy. You can also, again, browse for a different folder. I don't have any other folders here with extra pictures in them at the moment, but if you do, then you can simply choose that particular folder, and then it'll cycle through just the pictures in that folder. It won't cycle through anything else other than what's in there. Shuffle is an option that normally when it cycles through pictures, it goes picture A, picture B, picture C. It will cycle through A, B, C, so on and so forth. If you turn shuffle on, it's just like hitting the shuffle button on a music player or your iPod or anything else. Instead of playing A, B, C, it might pick picture A first, then it'll pick picture Z, then it'll pick picture L, then it'll pick picture, Q, and so on and so forth. It just randomizes the order in which it displays them. And then again, fitment options down here, same thing as if they were just a straight regular picture. You can choose fit, fill, all those options are the exact same. So that'll do it for the background tab here. So next up we have our colors tab. So if we go ahead and click colors, this will allow us to choose and change the tiling colors as well as the taskbar and start menu colors. First off, what we're going to do is notice how all these tiles here kind of have a bluish color to them. Some are a little bit more blue than others, like the edge icon here, which that's its own icon, so that one won't change even if I do change the color. But notice they all have a bluish color here. And if I put my mouse over the Windows icon here, it has a bluish color. This tab right here where it says colors, this has a bluish color. It's really hard to see, but even the outline of this entire window has kind of a bluish, thin outline to it. So what I can do is I can come down here, and if I were to say click this red color, watch the preview pane here first, and you'll notice that the icons here in the preview pane turned red, but this also turned red, this outline turns red. If I hover over the start menu, this turns red, and if I click the start menu, you'll notice all these icons turned red. So if I click, let's say like an orange color, same deal. They all turn orange. This is useful if you want to try and, kind of match up or theme a little bit and kind of get something that is kind of closely identified to, whatever your background image is. So it could be, a dark brown or a dark, almost black sort of color. Um, this option here, this automatically pick an accent color from my background, if you turn this option on, you can see the color palette disappears. And what it will do is Windows will actually look at this image, at your wallpaper, and it will pick a background color based on the colors in that background image. So as you can see here, it picked a blue. That's basically based on, the blue up here in the wallpaper, as well as maybe some down here in the mountain section a little bit. There's a lot of blue in this image, so it chooses a blue color. So if I were to choose a different image, it would choose a different color. Usually it's pretty good about picking the correct color. However, every once in a while it will pick a totally off the wall oddball color. You might have a fairly green image. It's got, say, lots of grass or trees in it, and maybe there's a tiny little ladybug sitting on a leaf of grass or something, and it'll pick that and say, oh, well, we need to make everything red. So every once in a while it'll be way off, but for the most part it's usually pretty good. So the last couple of options we have down here, show color on Start, Taskbar, Action Center, so on and so forth. If I clip this option on, you'll notice how the taskbar and everything, the Start menu, all of this is black, or very, almost like a tint. You can kind of see through it, but you can't see through it very much. If I turn this option on, you can see that everything now becomes the same color as what is picked here. So it becomes all a kind of a blue color. And the Start menu is no different. Everything there becomes a blue. If I were to change, colors to, say, like a green, you can see everything changes to green. Red, same deal. It basically just changes color for all of that. Make Start, Taskbar, and Action Center transparent. As you can see right now, again, if I bring the Start menu up, you can kind of see this pane back here. If I move this window a little bit over, you can see the outline of it, how there's, and you can see the kind of the wallpaper here, the silhouette of the mountains and everything. You can kind of see through the Start menu. If I turn this option off, you'll see that this brightens up, seemingly. But if I bring the Start menu up, you can no longer see through it. It's all one solid color. And the reason why this seems to have brightened up down here on the taskbar is simply because this was transparent also, but since a lot of this image was black down here towards the bottom, you weren't really seeing anything. It was just, you're seeing through to the black, to the darkness here. So you can kick that option on and off, and again, can't see anything through with it on, or with it off, I mean. If you kick it on, you can then see through, and everything is kind of transparent. So high contrast settings, just very briefly, allows you to change settings for contrast if you have a little bit of difficulty seeing, the mouse or text or anything. You can set to a high contrast option, which I won't do right now, but those options are there and available. So next, we're going to look at the lock screen. Now, the lock screen is if you first turn on the computer, or you wake it up from sleep mode, or you lock it by holding down the Windows key and pressing L on the keyboard. This is the screen that will appear. It is a separate background image, and then it usually has the time and the date on it. You can also change that image from here. So normally, it is set to the Windows Spotlight by default. So honestly, this is probably actually not a bad option. The Windows Spotlight downloads an image each day from Microsoft servers and will display that image for that day. A lot of times they download a lot of the images that come from Microsoft or come from the Windows Spotlight are actually very good, very high quality images. If you don't have your heart set on having your own image here, it's definitely not a bad option to have. If you don't have anything that needs to be themed specifically to match with your desktop background or anything else, the Windows Spotlight is a great resource, and again, they have some great images there. If you prefer to have your own, however, you can choose between picture and slideshow. If you choose picture here, you can choose a single image from your computer. Again, they have some, example images here. We can also click the browse button here and search for one on our own. So for instance, if I want to come and grab this image here, I can simply click on it and then left click choose picture, and that will set that to my lock screen image now. Slideshow will do, it's very, very similar to the background slideshow, except instead of switching it every 30 minutes, it will just switch it every time you see the lock screen. So if you put the computer to sleep, bring it up, it'll show one image. If you put it back to sleep, wake it up again, it'll show a different image. It'll just cycle through whatever images you have in a particular folder. So if you have a set image folder for just lock screen images, or if you just want it to cycle through your pictures folder in general, you can pick one. You can also add multiple folders to have it search through. So down here we have our get fun facts, tips, etc. button. Some people will like this, some people won't. I usually keep it off. All it does is it brings up little tidbits and little pieces of information up here on the screen, saying, hey, this is something you can do in Windows, or this app is available in the store, so on and so forth. Again, I usually turn it off. Your mileage may vary. You can leave it on if you want. It is turned on by default. Again, I have it switched off here. These allow you to set specific Windows Store apps to be able to see statuses directly on the lock screen. Very similar to the way a lot of the Android phones and stuff are. You can see, or even the iPhone, I believe, has these same functions. You can actually see, for instance, calendar notifications, or if you have, say, a new email come through, you can see that stuff on the lock screen here. You can choose which ones actually will show up. You can also choose whichever you want here. If you don't want it to display, you just click this None button, and then that will remove it from that list. Show Windows background picture on the sign-in screen. The sign-in screen is where you go to enter your password, or just click the sign-in button. If you set this off, then there won't be an image there. If you have it on, there will be an image. Screen timeout and screen saver. Just very briefly, screen timeout allows you to choose when the screen turns off and when the computer goes to sleep. If you are on a laptop, there will be options here for both when the computer's plugged in as well as when it is running on battery. You can have two different options or two different settings there. And screensaver takes you back to the old school screensaver settings. If you still want to be able to run a screensaver, this is where you need to go. Would be under lock screen and then screensaver settings. And here you could choose your screensaver as well as how long it takes before the screensaver starts doing its thing. You can also check to make sure it displays the login screen on resume once you move the mouse or whatever. So moving on to the next tab, we have our themes tab. And this video right now is being recorded before the 2016 anniversary update, so this might change in the very near future. But for now, all you can really do in this window is click on a couple links here. The theme settings link will take you into this window here, where you can save whatever theme you currently have, so that way if you decide to change something, or if somebody gets in and monkeys around, changes your wallpaper to something you don't want, you can simply come back here and left click on your theme, and it will change it back to exactly what it was previously. So again, if you have your theme saved out exactly the way you want it, you just come over here and click this Save Theme link. You can give it a name, and then it will save it in this area here, which you can always get back to it just by simply clicking on it, and you're done. Sound settings, icon settings, mouse pointer settings. I'm not going to touch too much on these. Sound settings, you can change your system sounds. Normally, in this drop-down, there's more options here than are on my machine. Mine's a little bit different at the moment. But you can also change, the different beeps, boops, oddball noises that your computer makes when it signs in, or when there's an error, or so on and so forth. Desktop icon settings, you can choose here which icons will appear on your desktop here. So if I choose, say the computer icon here and click apply, you'll see that this icon appears up here. If I uncheck it, click apply, it disappears. Mouse pointer settings. As you can see, I have a Microsoft mouse hooked up here, so it wants to take me here. But normally, it's going to bring you to this pointers screen here. And you can use this option or these settings to change the size of the pointer here. You won't be able to see these as I change them, but if you can go make the mouse much larger, you can make the mouse black instead of white, you can make it so that it inverts, so that if it's on a white surface, it's black, and if it's on a dark surface, it's white. You can change those settings right here. So finally, we're going to look at the Start tab here. And there's a couple of different settings we can change here. The first of which is the Show More Tiles option. So if I go into the Start menu right now, you can see that it comes almost out to the edge of the preview pane here. If I turn this option on, you can see that changes up here. But if I open the Start menu here, you can see that it now brings it out even further. So you can add even more tiles or shortcuts, stuff like that, if you so choose. Occasionally show suggestions in Start. This one I normally turn off, and likely you'll want to turn this one off as well. It's basically what it does is it just displays little app suggestions down here from the Windows Store. It could be, hey, look at this next greatest game or the next app that's going to change your life, whatever have you. I always usually turn it off on all of my personal machines, and I turn it off for a lot of customers as well, because I've had a lot of people say that they don't like it and they don't want to mess with it. They don't want to deal with it. Show most used apps. If you watched our Windows 10 Start menu video, then you'll know what the most used apps section is. But basically, this turns this on and off. So if I have it on, you can see that it's there. If I turn it off, you can see that it's gone. Recently added apps. If you go and install a program, it will show a little menu item right down here saying, hey, guess what? This is new. So you can click on it and be able to open that program right away. Show or use full start screen. As you can see right now, this is just a menu, not very big. If I click this option on, you can see that it fills up my entire screen. And then I can also come over here and view all of my apps over here. So recently opened items and jump lists, finally, is if I come over here to where this notepad is, you can see that well, I don't have a jump list here at the moment. Let's see if we can't fix that. We'll go into our documents and we'll just create a new notepad document very briefly. We'll go ahead and save that. So now if I close that out, now if I come into here, since I just recently edited that file, if I come over here and click on this jump list, it will show you that there is that file. If I turn this setting off and come back in here, I can click on it, and you can see that it's no longer there. It does not display anymore. So if you don't want to be able to see recent files or anything that have opened, then you can simply turn this option off. So choose which folders appear on Start. I'll let you look at this list right now for a second. Basically, all it does is it just adjusts which of these are shown here. So if I click on, say, Documents and Downloads, you can see that it adds these to this list here. If I kick them off, they disappear. So this is a list of everything you can have listed in the Start menu, but I'm not going to go too much further into that. I'll let you experiment with that for yourself. So that's all the personalization options, right? Not quite. We've got one more to look at, and that is the profile picture, which is not actually in that personalization menu. Instead, to access that, we need to go into the Start menu and come up here to where our profile name is. And if we click on it and then click Change Account Settings, we can see that right here we have an ability to change our account picture. If you come down here, you can actually use your webcam if your computer or your laptop or whatever has one, and you can take a picture of yourself or your friends or your dog or whatever you want, and that will set that into this image right here. Otherwise, if you have a picture that you want to use, say if it's a cool icon or like this one, or if it's another picture of something, you can simply click Browse, and you can simply select that image, click Choose Picture, and as you can see, it brings that in there. And if I click the Start menu, it's now right there. This image also will be used on the sign-in screen, so when you go to type your password in, that picture will display right there as well. It'll also display some of your most recently used pictures here. So if I want to go back to, say, this Novus Computers short logo, I can do that very easily. So that will do it for personalizing Windows 10. So by now you should have a pretty good idea about exactly how to make Windows yours. So if you have any questions, be sure to leave it in the comment section below. Otherwise, that will do it for this video. So be sure to subscribe, like. You can also take a look at our rest of our website, which is novuscomputers.com. Novus dash is in a hyphen or a minus sign, computers.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at Novus Computers. There's no hyphen in that one, so it's just straight Novus at Novus Computers, at symbol Novus Computers. So other than that, again, I am Andrew with Novus Computers, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.